continue to be part of our lexicon as our, man, I'm using big words. I hope I'm using them correctly. Hello dears, Natalie Luck here. Welcome to episode 5 of Write the Story, where I give you a writing prompt from this book and 10 words to include in your story, and then you can write it yourself and join me on my journey as I tell you how I outline, usually about 5 minutes to spend on the outline, and then I spend like 15 to 20 minutes actually writing the story. Very rough, keep that in mind, and I totally recognize that. But you can write the story yourself. It's all about writing prompts and trying to get stronger as writers, being creative and exercising those creative muscles. So this is the 5th one. If it's your first one, I kind of just explained the rules to you. And it's the rules I made up and I kind of just been sticking to, which is outline for 5 minutes, write for 15 to 20 minutes. For me, sometimes my writing gets interrupted because I have kids, if you didn't get that from the intro. And it really, I just talk about my favorite line, my least favorite line, what I liked about the story overall, things like that to kind of solidify the story. Let's just go ahead and get into the story for this episode. This episode, the story is called An Unexpected Union. The 10 words to include in this story are brothers, potato, common, hands, boyfriend, alphabet, scribble, hydrangea, sandwich, and tug of war. Here's the part where I tell you about my outline, how I put all the words together, and then what changed between the outline and the actual story. So in my outline, I thought of an unexpected union. I decided an older gay guy, like, and I say older, I mean like a young adult, 18, 19, maybe 20, gay guy sees a little boy who is upset and lost at a fair and decides to help him find his brothers. So that's where I got the idea to put boyfriend in there, is that it's the gay guy's boyfriend that the gay guy is searching for, and then this little boy is searching for his brothers. The guy, after they introduce themselves, he offers him his hand as they go on their common goal, search goal, and they pass, I wrote that they pass by hydrangeas, I can't say the word, they pass by hydrangeas lining the walkway, the pathway. At one point, they're sandwiched between a crowd of people. Another point is that the little boy says, "Hey, I like your shoes," or "Your shoes are great," or something to the guy. And the guy kind of brushes off and goes, "Oh, I was just trying not to look like a potato." And he changes his tune and actually says "thank you" and such to the little boy to kind of lift his spirits. I wrote the guy scribbled on his watch, sending a text message to his boyfriend who he was searching for. And I also put in the tug of war was an internal tug of war for a guy who I later named Roger. Roger's internal war of whether he should help Will, this little boy, or not. And then the last thing, it was kind of hung up on, but alphabet, I wasn't sure how to incorporate that. And then I was like, okay, to convey that it's a little boy, I decided that the alphabet was gonna be on his t-shirt. So things that stayed the same: gay guy having a boyfriend, meets a little boy who is searching for his brothers, grab kid's hand, they had a common search goal. The first thing that changed is hydrangeas weren't lining the walkway. It's more of they were heading towards a hydrangea garden because it was a central point where if people are lost, they would go there to find each other. Kind of like there's always, when you go to a fair and stuff, there's always that central location that everyone goes to find each other. I did keep sandwiched between a crowd of people. I kept that the guy was trying to not look like a potato when he got dressed that morning. I kept scribbled on the watch. The tug of war changed. So now there's only 2 changes so far out of the 10 words of hydrangeas lining the walkway and the tug of war. It was an internal tug of war, but I changed it that it was an internal tug of war by Roger trying to pick out what to wear that day. And I kept the alphabet on Will's shirt So 2 out of 10 changed. Everything else stayed the same. I will also admit that when I wrote this story, when I started it, I had no clue where I was headed. I didn't even want to write. I just wasn't feeling it. I haven't been feeling it, it feels like, for a week or so. But I persevered, and even though this story for me won't get starred, whereas previous stories I have starred for myself to possibly expand into a longer story, this story for me won't get starred, but I'm still happy with it. I'm kind of glad, especially with my attitude of where I was going to head with this. And I noticed my outlines aren't changing as much from when I created them to what actually goes on the story. So with that, I'll just go ahead and read the story. Will wiped his eyes with his alphabet shirt as he looked around the fair. A young man walked over. "Are you lost?" he asked the boy. Will shook his head. "No, my brothers told me to meet them by the hydrangeas if I got lost." Will looked down at his feet. I just forgot where they are." The young man smiled. "Well, it seems we have a common goal then. I'm meeting my boyfriend near the large hydrangea garden. I'm a little scared. Will you walk with me?" The young man held out his hand. "I'm Roger." Will puffed out his chest and nodded while grasping Roger's hand. "I'm Will," he said. The pair snaked through the crowd. They were sandwiched together once when one of the roller coasters let off its passengers. Will looked down at Roger's shoes as they weaved. "I like your shoes," Will said. "Oh, I just tried not to dress like a potato today." Roger looked back, seeing Will kind of down. "Thank you for the compliment. I was in a tug of war to wear these today or not. You have a good sense of style," Roger added. Will beamed. Roger and Will arrived to a sea of hydrangeas. Roger scribbled on his watch. "Where are you?" Roger mumbled. Being taller, Roger was able to look over most people's heads. "There's my brothers!" Will pointed as he began to run. Roger proceeded forward, following Will's trajectory. Will embraced 2 identical brothers. Roger's smile grew as he approached. "These are my brothers, Zach and Tim," Roger interjected. "Did you get my text?" "Yeah, I text back I was looking for my brother." So with this story, what I really liked about it is I kind of went outside my comfort zone. I know a lot of writers, we don't like to write what we don't know. We're afraid we're going to offend somebody. And with that, I will say this is a rough draft. So if I did offend anyone, I am sorry. But the best advice I've ever gotten as a writer is when you're in your rough draft, when you're just writing everything down, don't worry about offending people. Don't get held up on trying to correct stigmas and such. Just get the story down, and editing later is where you're going to polish that up and where you're going to make your story better and make sure that you are representing people in the proper light. I do like this story because it was unexpected. A lot of people judge if an older guy is with a younger male or female child. They kind of, unless they look alike and they actually look like siblings, you kind of go, what's going on there? Like, it's like the moment a guy turns 20, he can't be around kids anymore. Like, only girls can be babysitters, not boys. And it's something that's always irked me. And sorry, that's about as political as I will get. But I've even noticed it when my husband would take our daughter out, or we're out to dinner and we see a dad holding a baby and the baby starts to cry. Immediately the mother or the grandmother steps in like, "Hey, let me take the baby." The father is just as capable of calming that child down as a mother and a grandmother are. Sorry, my 2 cents. We're done. Okay, back to the story. I am happy for this story. I felt that I did encompass the unexpected union. As I wrote it, it did cross my mind that I thought that some people might see this as like a pedophile targeting a child, and I definitely did not want to convey that, and I do not want to convey that, and I want to fight any of that type of stereotypes of that, which is to my previous rant. So I do recognize that, but with that, I also felt really good about this story. I felt, even though I wasn't up to writing it, I felt that I had a beautiful logic there. And I filled perfectly to the last line, which is funny because I had every single word covered at right here. Tug of war was the last one, and tug of war is mentioned here, and I didn't have any more words to mention in that part. So I felt pretty good with my pace, my timing. I think I'm getting better with my details where I'm being more concise because I didn't have to say how crowded it was at the fair. You've been to a fair, you've been to a festival or something where you could kind of picture it. So I definitely enjoyed writing the story. You know, I will say, I don't think any of the words were actually difficult to incorporate. I was able to kind of be creative. I was glad that I was able to do tug of war as like an internal struggle. I was glad that I did sandwich as describing how close they were in the crowd of people. My other thought was food, but I'm also hungry. Oh, which brings me to the shirt I'm wearing today. It says overthinking and hungry. It's me in a nutshell right now. So I was really happy with this story. So my least favorite line, I think, is more of because it's a slang and I worry that it won't age well. Kind of like when we read some historical novels or and such, where unless you learn about the culture in that time, the reference just goes over your head. So the part that I don't like is when Will compliments Roger's shoes and then Roger replies, "Oh, I just tried not to dress like a potato today." We understand what is meant there. That's very it's a zeitgeist of this current culture right now. I mean, even though it's like 10 years old too, where there was pictures of potatoes going, hey, here's a picture of a potato. It was still, it made sense in this time, but it may not evolve. I wonder if it's still going to be a part of our lexicon as our communications and vocabulary expand over the next few years. Like what slang is going to stay and then what slang is going to go. And I've never really thought of that as a writer until this very moment. So hopefully you're not writing anything that's too crazy. But I definitely feel that sometimes, not that we need to avoid slang, but at the same time, I kind of feel like we don't want to be too heavy with the slang because then it's not going to make the piece timeless. Whereas like here, right here, talking about a fair, I didn't mention anything. I did mention texting, so that lets you know it's, 1995 or later. But with a watch, that means it's definitely year 2010 or later. So I did kind of set a time to it, but who knows? Maybe texting on your watch is going to become more often anyways. Maybe the word text is not going to be part of our lexicon anymore. Maybe it evolves into something else. Who knows? And that shouldn't hold anyone up as a writer, but it also should be kept in mind too if you want your piece to be timeless. I know I went on a tangent there, but I'm glad you bared with me. Now, for my favorite line, honestly, I kind of like multiple lines, and it's at the end. And I think my favorite part is when Will is introducing his brothers. He's like, here's my brother Zach, and then Roger interjects and says, Tim, did you get my text? And I'm kind of proud of that. I've always struggled with showing versus telling, and I feel like I'm kind of telling you, but I'm also showing you as well without saying, hey, Tim's his boyfriend, and Roger just happened to meet the little brother on his way to see the boyfriend. And I thought it was really cool. I actually, when I originally had this story, I imagined Will's older brothers being twins. What I kind of wanted is that Roger would see the twin and go, wait a second, that's my boyfriend. And then he sees his boyfriend next to the twin and goes, oh, okay. But also, if you're dating somebody, you kind of, you know right away, like you have conversations and stuff and learn about each other. You learn, yeah, my significant other is a twin or not. You kind of learn that quickly. Now, you may not know the little brother because maybe pictures aren't shown as often and such. So that part is probably okay. And that's why I definitely wanted to make sure that Will never mentioned find my identical brothers, twin brothers, because then that might clue Roger in of, hey, we might be looking for the same people. So either way, I'm proud of that line. It definitely will stay strong. And I'm proud of the whole story. I hope I did it justice. I know I'm definitely writing from different perspectives. I hope I conveyed Will as young enough that where he could get lost, but not completely, maybe his brothers aren't completely worried about him. But they were also waiting by the hydrangeas like they were supposed to. So with that, I guess we'll see. Maybe I'll pick this story up again another time. I'm not starring it right now, but all these stories, they could very well become another story. With that, have a good day, have a good week, have a good month, have a good year.